Hey. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Office Hours with Lanora. I created this series called Office Hours with Lanora to help anyone who is seeking to learn about their options to becoming licensed as a real estate professional. The second group of people I want to help are those that are currently taking a pre-licensing course. My goal is to help you pass that course on a first attempt, as well as the licensing exam. And then finally, for those individuals that have already started a career in real estate, ultimately, I'd like to help you stay in the business. All right. So we got out of the way what and why Office Hours with Lenora was created. Today's topic will center around what most new licensees forget to ask their sponsoring brokers. So it can be a new real estate broker. It can be a new residential leasing agent. Most of it will more center around the new broker licensee. So let's get started. The first thing that I noticed that new licensees forget to ask their sponsoring brokers pertain to those things related to training, maybe a mentorship project at their new office, or who that phone a friend would be. And I'll break down each one of those. Training is just that. You don't know what you don't know. You've often heard me say that. But training is crucial when you're newly licensed. You want to get more on the job experience. You want someone in that office that's going to be able to show you give you a tour of the office, to be able to show you where materials are for prospective leads that you'll be working with, whether it's related to rentals, buyers, or sellers. You want someone to kind of point you in the right direction. You also want someone that's going to help you figure out how to fill out the paperwork, those sorts of things. So maybe even a mentor in that office, or someone within your real estate community can help you with this. The phone a friend for me is just that. Who will you be calling when you find yourself in a situation where you may not know the answer or information is not readily available to you? Who can you call? Will it be that sponsoring broker? Will it be another broker associate in the office that you're currently working with? Who can you reach out to? Maybe you have questions on completing the contract. Maybe you have questions on an addendum or required disclosures that go along with the contract. You want to know who that phone a friend will be in advance so that you're able to communicate what your needs are. I'm going to put my glasses on because having a little dry eye situation. So I want to make sure that I can see and talk to you. The next question I think licensees fail to ask related to when they're starting out with their new sponsoring brokers: how and when will I be paid? It's important that you know that, because if you're closing a deal, you want to know when your payment is going to be coming because you've done the work. I typically call these CFIs, and that stands for cash flow interruptions. Cash flow interruptions will occur when you have not discussed the information to be able to say, okay, do we get closed on do we get paid, or do I get paid on a specific day of the week once I close the transaction? Do I have to turn in all of the paperwork or just the check from the closing to my sponsoring broker? Should the completed file be turned in before I'm paid? And how will I be paid? Will it be a paper check? Will it be a direct deposit or ACH to your preferred account? You need to know all of this up front before you start working, because you don't want to get to the actual closing or have completed everything that you deem necessary, and then your sponsoring broker says, uh-oh, you've got something else to do. So talk about how you get paid. Talk about your money up front. That way there won't be any misunderstanding on the back end of everything. Okay, the other questions that I think new licensees fail to ask: are there any hidden fees I should know about? It is important that you ask the questions up front. And they're not necessarily hidden per se, but maybe you don't know what to ask. So E&O insurance, you'll hear about that in real estate. It stands for error and omission insurance. You are required to have that as a licensee, specifically as a real estate broker. You have to have it because you're completing documentation, you're completing contracts, you're completing paperwork that if you make a mistake on that paperwork and it's not caught until later down the road, you could possibly be sued. So we're trying to prevent anybody, because folks are sue happy in real estate, trust me. You want to prevent that from happening. So the error and omission insurance is just that. It's a protection for you, the licensee, to prevent you from losing it all as you're starting out in the business as a new licensee and even further up the road in your career. You may be required to pay error and omission insurance once a month. You may be required to pay it per transaction. You may be required to pay it annually. You want to ask those questions on when it is due, because that payment has to be made to ensure that you're covered. Okay, so talk to your sponsoring brokers up front. Ask them about that when it's due, again, because we don't want any cash flow interruptions. Let's also talk about what you can do in terms of your scope of work as a new licensee. Some companies may not want you acting in a specific capacity. So let's talk about wholesaling. If for whatever reason you're now licensed as a broker and you decide that I want to work as a wholesaler and you're doing more than one transaction in the state of Illinois, you're required to be licensed as that broker. If you decide to work in that scope as a wholesaler, maybe because of insurance risk or your office simply has a policy against it, you need to know this up front before you go out into the actual field and start working. Wholesaling is now a licensed activity in the state of Illinois. Again, if you're completing more than one transaction in a year. So if your sponsoring broker has a policy in place that say you can't represent, serve, or act in the capacity of a wholesaler, you need to know that before you start working with them. Maybe they tell you, because I do talk to a lot of people who want to start a property management company. Maybe your sponsoring broker says that's too much of a risk for them. They don't want you working in that capacity as a property manager while you're licensed and under their umbrella. You have to abide by the rules. So ask those questions. Can I do wholesaling? Can I start or work in the capacity of a property manager while working with whatever company you decide to go with? There are some companies that only do residential, some real estate offices that only do residential work. There are others that only do commercial work as a scope. There are some that say you can do all. You can work with anybody. You need to ask what are the types of services that we provide? What types of specialties can I work in? Can I also represent commercial level clients? Although your license for the state of Illinois will permit you to do that, you want to ask up front so that your sponsoring broker is not caught by surprise, or you, if they're not able to help you complete that transaction. Okay? Finally, and this is the one that you really want to get out front and in the open with your sponsoring broker. Can I represent myself in a transaction? I have purchased real estate property of my own, and I represented myself as the buyer. So I filled out all of the contract, all of the paperwork, closed the deal, signed the deal as the buyer as well, and then received a check as compensation in the form of a commission at the end of that transaction, even though I was the buyer. You do want to have that conversation with your sponsoring broker up front before you start representing yourself, because your sponsoring broker might say for those transactions that you're the seller or you're the buyer, maybe there's no fee for those transactions. You don't pay a commission to the office. Maybe there's a flat fee that you have to pay to the office for that type of representation. Maybe they don't want you representing yourself at all because, again, we're going back to the error and omission insurance. They don't want you to put yourself in a situation. Have the conversation sooner than later, then that way you know what you can and can't do. In the offices that I worked in, when I represented myself during those transactions, they didn't have a problem as long as the paperwork was correct and you properly disclose that you are a licensed real estate broker, licensed residential leasing agent, whatever the case may be. You have to have proper disclosure written on the document so that no one can say, oops, I didn't know, and now they want to sue you. Okay, so those are the top 5 questions that I hear the most, that I think a lot of new licensees forget to ask. And then when something happens, then you're saying, uh-oh, I didn't know. I should have done this. And a lot of times not asking those same questions will then move you to being disgruntled or upset with your current sponsoring broker, and now you're ready to leave. So I hope that you take my bit of advice and ask the questions up front. That way there is no surprises on the back end. Okay, so let's talk about what's coming up over at the Realtors Real Estate School for the month of November. Starting next week, we're going to have some in-person sessions for both the brokers, meaning we'll start a 2-week accelerated format class, which will run from November 7th through the 18th, Monday through Friday for 2 weeks, 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at the school downtown. We'll also have classes for the managing brokers. Those of you that have an aspiration to become a managing broker, you do need to complete an additional 45 hours in the format of a pre-licensing course, just like you did with your broker's license. If you've had a broker's license a minimum of 2 years and it's active and you're ready to move on to take that managing broker course, please join us next week, the entire week, Monday through Wednesday of next week, 8:30 to 6:30 in person at our downtown facility. And then Thursday and Friday of next week, we'll be completing the 45 hours from 9 a.m. to 4:30. If you've already taken the first 30 hours with us and you want to piggyback and finish up the final 15 hours on Thursday and Friday, feel free to read above how you can contact me and we can get you registered for that portion of the course. Finally, towards the tail end, right before it's Turkey Day, we are hosting in person the November residential leasing agent course. So it'll be November 21st and 22nd, which is a Monday and Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 4:30 at the 430 North Michigan downtown office in school. You can join us for that 2-day 15-hour class. So that is it for this session of Office Hours with Lenora. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach me sooner than later. I will be out of the office next week taking a much needed vacation. So hopefully we will talk before I leave or upon my return on the 15th of this month. So until then, and on the next episode of Office Hours with Lenora, ta-ta for now. Bye-bye.